Hey guys, I messed up big time. I don't even know how it all started or when I let myself do something so stupid. I let my desires take over and now I've ruined my happy marriage because of my lustful actions. I feel completely lost in this mess. Everything fell apart so quickly, like a blur, and now I'm drowning in shame. I did something awful and I can't even look at myself in the mirror. I don't think I'll ever be able to forgive myself for cheating and betraying my partner. Hey, y'all. I messed up big time. My horniness couldn't control myself and now I'm in a total mess. I'm feeling lost and hopeless, but I'm hoping that by sharing my story here, someone else might learn something. I ruined my marriage all by myself chasing after some quick thrills with a younger person. My kids won't even look at me or talk to me like they used to, and my husband wants a divorce. You're probably wondering how it all went down, so here goes. So, here's the lowdown. I'm Fiona, a 45-year-old chick, and my hubby Victor is a 47-year-old dude. We've been hitched for 25 years and call Alabama, USA our home sweet home. Our trio of kiddos includes Ariel and Arthur, who are 23-year-old twins, and Skylar, a 19-year-old. Victor and I go way back. We were high school sweethearts who said "I do" a few years after tossing our graduation caps in the air. Back in the day, Victor was the star quarterback, while I was the nerdy girl who got picked on. But all that changed when Victor swooped in to rescue me and stood up for me. Man, high school was rough. I was always getting picked on by those bullies, while Victor, the popular quarterback, was everyone's favorite. But then, out of nowhere, our paths crossed in the hallway and Victor started hanging out with me. It was like something straight out of a movie. Despite our differences, Victor looked past the labels and actually liked me for me. He became my protector, standing up to those tormentors who used to give me a hard time. Victor made my life a living hell, but having him by my side made the bullying stop. His presence was like a shield that scared off those bullies. I couldn't believe that the popular quarterback chose to be with me, just a regular girl trying to make it through. Victor not only stood up for me, but he also showed me a world where kindness was more important than being mean. With him, I found an unexpected ally, a friend, and eventually a husband. I remember our first date like it was yesterday. I was so excited and nervous waiting for Victor to show up. Our first high school date happened when I was 16 and he was almost 18, close to finishing up with high school. The vibe was a mix of excitement and nerves. When Victor finally showed up, his adorable shy smile instantly made me feel happy. We started our date with a casual walk in the park, chatting and sharing embarrassing and funny stories. Victor seemed genuinely interested in what I had to say, making me feel really appreciated. He was really good at feeling important, sitting on a bench, munching on popcorn, and watching the sunset. It felt like the start of something really special. That first high school date is forever etched in my mind, an unforgettable moment. Our second date was even better. Victor surprised me with a cool two-seater bike and we had a blast riding around town, laughing like crazy. After our biking adventure, Victor suggested a picnic and we found a nice spot in the park, laid out a blanket, and enjoyed ourselves. Me and Victor had some bomb-ass homemade sandwiches and snacks, just the two of us enjoying some tasty food and the simple joy of being carefree teenagers. We were sitting there, savoring every bite, and I couldn't help but appreciate how thoughtful Victor was. Our second date was all about having a great time together and making another awesome memory during our high school days. For our third date, Victor took me to this amazing hidden spot that he loved. We went on some peaceful trails, getting away from all the school craziness and just enjoying each other's company. We found his hidden hideaway in the middle of nature, and it felt like our own peaceful escape. Victor told us all about why this place was so important to him, making it feel like our own little sanctuary. We chilled in his favorite spot, and I could tell Victor really trusted me as he opened up about this special place. We were both in our early 20s, Victor at 22 and me at 20, when we decided to get married. We were knee-deep in planning our upcoming wedding, while also dealing with the constant burden of college expenses weighing on our finances. We were both busting our butts to follow our dreams, me trying to become a surgeon and my partner going after an art degree. Our goals were huge, but our funds were small. We'd sit down and really dig into the numbers, trying to figure out how we could afford to get married without going broke. So many nights were spent talking about our future, balancing our school work with the reality of being a married couple. It definitely wasn't easy on our bank accounts, but we stayed hopeful and optimistic. Our strong determination turned these challenges into stepping stones on our big day. Victor and I were in this cute little church with all our friends and family around us. The vibe was a mix of excitement and nerves, showing how serious our commitment was. When I walked down the aisle, emotions hit me like a freight train. The simple church setting didn't make the moment any less special, it actually added to the atmosphere. Yo, our wedding was the real deal, man. The church was decked out simple yet beautiful, just like our love, easy but deep. Having our closest peeps there made the whole vibe so joyful and supportive. But let me tell why I was nervous as hell, like butterflies in my stomach. Standing up there with Victor, looking into his eyes, I felt calm and peaceful. Our vows were straight from the heart, showing the world how much love we got for each other. From our high school days to now, the post-wedding party was lit. Lots of toasts, laughs, and special moments with the people who have been there for us all along. Our wedding might not have been a huge show, but it was full of real feelings. Fast forward a few years and we're both doing great, graduated, and Victor is killing it as a top surgeon. I'd say we are winning. Victor's job is kicking ass, but it also means he's always on call, 24/7. It's starting to take a toll on our relationship because he's hardly got any time for me these days. As for me, even though I've got a degree in art, I chose to be a stay-at-home mom for our kids. I made that call so I could be there for them while Victor went after his career. Plus, when Victor's dad passed, he got a fat inheritance that kept us from ever struggling financially. Our finances were good. Victor made sure we were set up in case he wanted to retire, even though he didn't really need to. He kept working because he loved his job and was dedicated to it. He also set up trust funds and college funds for our kids, so we were pretty well off financially. But, emotionally, it had been a while since Victor and I had a chance to really connect or be intimate in our marriage. My relationship was on the rocks because he never had time for me. Feeling desperate for some affection, I ended up cheating on him. I ran into Charles at the grocery store of all places right after I finished shopping. It was funny how it reminded me of how I met my husband in high school. Charles was a young guy, probably only a few years older than our oldest kids, Ariel and Arthur. And man, was he good looking. He said sorry to me and offered to help me carry my stuff to the checkout and then to my car, but I said no thanks. He even offered to pay for my stuff, but I turned that down too because the bump with him didn't hurt me or my things. I finished checking out and left, but he kept following me. He told me his name was Charles and I told him mine. It was clear he was trying to flirt with me, so I quickly told him how old I was. Charles pointed out the big age difference between us, but he also said he thought I was beautiful regardless of age. I get a lot of compliments on my looks, with people always mentioning how young I appear. I think it's because I take good care of my skin and exercise regularly. It was nice to hear such kind words from someone as young as Charles. It made me happy. With my husband being so busy with work, we've been drifting apart emotionally and I've been feeling neglected. Hey, I smiled and thanked Charles for his attention, but I made it clear that I'm married. Charles said he was cool with just being friends, but deep down I knew he was lying. I should have left right then and there, but for some stupid reason, I decided to stick around and even gave him my phone number. Before I even got home, he was already texting me. Next thing I knew, Charles and I were chatting all the time. I guess I did it because I was struggling. Feeling hella lonely with the kids off at college. Ariel and Arthur are both in college, and Skylar just started his college journey after graduating high school early. Did I mention the kids worship their dad? All three of them are studying medicine, following in their dad's brainy footsteps. Looks like they got his smarts, but not my creativity. Ariel's on her way to becoming a. Alright, so while Arthur and Skylar were busy chasing their dreams of becoming doctors, I was left alone at home feeling pretty darn lonely. During that time, Charles and I started texting a lot, with some flirty vibes sprinkled in. I should have felt guilty about it, but I didn't see any harm in it at the time. I convinced myself that as long as Victor didn't find out, it wouldn't hurt anyone. Charles and I didn't really have much in common anyway. He was more into music while I was all about the arts. Our taste in movies was totally different, but somehow that brought us closer together. I found out that Charles was only 24, just a year older than Ariel and Arthur. Despite feeling guilty, I decided to keep hanging out with him. Charles was determined to make me see things his way. He thought if I watched some of his favorite movies, I might end up liking them too. Charles was really good at pretending to care and listen to all my complaints and talks. Looking back, I can see now that he actually showed a lot of red flags, but I was too focused on getting his attention to see his true self. At first, he acted all trustworthy and nice, but as soon as things got tough, he ditched me. He was so charming and good at acting like he cared about me, that soon enough I was laughing and smiling more around him. My friends, kids, and even Victor noticed how much I was changing. Whenever they asked, I lied and said I just wanted to enjoy life more. Charles had a way of making you feel like you were the most important person in the world to him. He could really get to know someone's innermost thoughts and feelings. Eventually, I started inviting Charles over when Victor wasn't around. We would watch movies together and argue playfully about whose taste in films was better. I knew I was doing something wrong, but I kept doing it anyway. I tried to ignore it, but deep down I knew my hangouts with Charles were leading to something more. One day, Charles came over while Victor was out. Victor had told me he'd be back late, so Charles and I planned to have a movie marathon until morning. But Charles ended up staying longer than planned, and we watched a bunch of movies together. Netflix, I just can't believe how it all went down. It happened so fast, like out of nowhere. Charles made a move and we ended up getting all close and personal. Then, the next day at like 3 in the morning, Victor still wasn't back. I thought he'd be back by 7 or 8. That's when it hit me, I messed up big time. I panicked and kicked Charles out before Victor could show up. I felt sick to my stomach at the thought of cheating. I was freaking out about how Victor would react and respond to all those questions swirling in my head. I felt super guilty, but also kinda shocked because I actually enjoyed it. I was so emotionally deprived that I ended up cheating on my husband with a guy who was just a year older than my twins. When my husband got back from the hospital, I was drowning in guilt, but I couldn't admit it because I was scared he'd dump me, and that was the last thing I wanted. I really did love my husband and I saw myself being with him forever. He was kind, humble, and always willing to help, but he hated cheating. My husband believed in talking things out instead of cheating. So, even though I had just cheated on him, I pretended like everything was fine. We talked for a bit, and Victor, who had been working all night, finally went to bed. After that, I blocked Charles and sent him a short message telling him what to do. Tell him to give me some space for a few days. Everything seemed fine at first, but as time went on, I started feeling really lonely. I realized that Charles was the only one keeping me from being bored. He kept me entertained and, I hate to admit it, I missed the intimacy we had. After wrestling with my thoughts for a while, I finally unblocked Charles. He messaged me right away and we started talking again. Charles somehow convinced me that as long as we were together, everything would be okay. Victor had no clue about the affair, so we were in the clear. Charles told me not to worry because Victor was always busy with work, even on weekends. And with our kids off at college, the house was usually empty except for me. Charles convinced me that what I was doing wasn't really that bad, blaming Victor for ignoring me. Sadly, I got caught up in Charles's influence. And then, before you know it, we started sneaking around and hooking up at home whenever Victor was out, usually on weekends when he was working at the hospital. Charles would come over and we would get cozy. He even convinced me to give him some cash, even though Victor was the one bringing home the bacon. We had a joint account, so I started helping Charles out with money for things like gas, groceries, clothes, and whatever else he needed. I was totally wrapped up in it all. I was in this messed up situation where I felt like I was losing myself because of how deeply involved I was with Victor. His random and surprise visits home should have made me wake up and realize what was going on, but I just kept ignoring them. By that point, Charles had me wrapped around his finger so tight that I couldn't break free. Then one day, while Charles and I were getting cozy, I heard Victor's car pulling up in the driveway, which was a total shock because he wasn't supposed to be back at that time. Me and Charles split up real quick and I quickly fixed up the bed. I had to hide Charles in one of our kids' rooms since they were off at college and hardly ever used their rooms anymore. Even though their childhood stuff was still in there and they usually stayed there when they visited. Luckily, Victor didn't think to check the kids' room and didn't seem to want to let on that he was suspicious. So he acted normal and stayed home all day as a result. My ex-boyfriend Charles had to crash in the kids' room overnight, but the next morning after Victor went to work, Charles came out. He was hungry from not eating much during his hiding, so I let him shower and have breakfast with me. After that, we ended up hooking up again, which was a big mistake on my part. I should have just sent Charles packing after breakfast instead of getting busy with him again. It seemed like Victor was onto us because he came back home early. So, Victor walked in on me and Charles getting it on in bed. Have you ever had that moment where you feel like your life is about to end? Well, that's exactly how I felt when Victor barged in and caught us in the act. I quickly covered up with the sheets and started crying. Charles' clothes were on the floor and Victor snatched them, refusing to give them back. He kicked Charles out, leaving him butt naked. I just stood there, feeling helpless. I was watching everything that was happening, knowing full well that I had messed up my life. Strangely, Victor didn't yell or react at all, which really shook me. I was hoping for some kind of reaction, some words, maybe even some yelling, asking me how I could do something like that. But nothing. Victor just threw Charles's clothes in the trash and left the house, ignoring my pleas for him to come back and let me explain. I cried non-stop, feeling so guilty. What had I done? My life was in ruins with no chance of fixing it. The marriage I had was over. I worked my butt off to build something that fell apart completely. I knew Victor would never forgive me. I really messed him up. Victor was about to leave and I knew I was screwed. I had no money or assets of my own and I regretted choosing to be a stay-at-home wife. To make things worse, Victor wasted no time in airing my dirty laundry for everyone to see. I was horrified by how he exposed my cheating and betrayal. So, I was just minding my own business when my phone blew up with a notification from Victor adding me to a WhatsApp group chat with my family, our friends, and his family. It was like I had a gut feeling about what he was up to. I tried calling him right away, but he straight up ignored me. Next thing I know, he's sharing screenshots of my messages with Charles and even recorded a voice note talking about how he caught Charles and me in the act at the house. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing as my inbox filled up with messages from people expressing shock and disbelief. How could I do something so messed up and ruin my marriage? My parents were super disappointed, my friends were totally shocked and let down, and Victor's family was pissed. Apparently, Victor didn't want our kids finding out from someone else, so he spilled the beans to them. I found out because my kids started calling me right after. At first, I was too scared to pick up, but I know my kids and ignoring them wasn't an option. Man, I had to suck it up and actually talk to my kids face to face at the house. It was way scarier than just calling them. So, I finally picked up the phone and my kids were so shocked and let down by me. I tried to explain how lonely I was and that's why I did what I did, but they weren't having it. They asked why I didn't talk to them sooner and I had no good answer. They told me Victor was about to retire and that was news to me. Plenty of time together, I can definitely say I messed up big time. My kids won't even talk to me and both my family and Victor's are pissed off. They think Victor and I are all good, but he's been ignoring my calls. So, I started bombarding him with texts, trying to explain myself, say sorry, and tell him how lonely I am. But Victor's standing firm, admitting he knows I'm lonely but also dropping the bomb that has been secretly planning his retirement to surprise me. I couldn't understand what he was saying, but then he started accusing me of cheating on him. This led to him showing up at home unannounced. Victor gave me a short amount of time to pack up my stuff and leave our house. He mentioned that he was planning on divorcing me. So, I packed up my things and went to stay with my parents. They were mad, but they didn't turn me away when I needed them. Charles, on the other hand, blocked me and I couldn't get in touch with him. It's like he never even existed. I know exactly what's going on. Man, I messed up big time and I feel really bad about it. I'll always regret what I did, but I hope that by telling my story here, someone can learn from my mistakes. Thanks for listening. Okay, that was a wild story. Now, let's move on to another one. Stay tuned and let's get into it. So, I wanted to share something and get some advice from the Reddit community. My husband, who's 36, and I, who's 34, have been married for 3 years. Our relationship has been pretty solid overall, despite some challenges. Me and my husband always faced challenges together. He had this buddy from college, let's call him Mark, who was like a brother to him. Mark was even the best man at our wedding, which I totally got and was cool with. Lately, my husband's job has been taking up a lot of his time, so Mark has been helping out around the house with repairs and stuff while he's gone. Needing a guy's help, I really liked how Mark was willing to lend a hand. He's a really good guy. One night, my husband had to work late again, so I was gonna leave the house but the back door got stuck and needed fixing. Since I was gonna be home alone at night, I called my husband and he said he'd asked Mark to come and fix it. I wasn't shocked by this, so I said okay. I started going upstairs to take a shower, but I heard Mark coming up the stairs, so instead of going all the way up, I decided to wait. Okay, so this dude showed up at our front door, grabbed his toolbox from his truck's trunk, and looked all rugged and manly that day. He had this strong and attractive vibe going on. I just gave him a wave as he walked over. I felt kinda bad that he had to help out at our house again, but he seemed happy and upbeat about it. I mentioned that fixing the back door wasn't super urgent and we could do it another time if he had plans or something. But he quickly said he was free and ready to help out. Hey, no worries. I was like, sure, let's go out the back door. While he was checking out the door, I headed upstairs to finish my shower and get ready for bed. And then it hit me, what if I left the stove on while I was cooking dinner? So I rushed back downstairs to double check. As I was coming down the stairs, I heard footsteps coming up and, to my surprise, it was Mark. He told me I left the stove on and he already turned it off. We locked eyes, I leaned in for a kiss, and things escalated quickly after that. Me and my man were just chilling when he started fixing the back door and I went back to my shower. Suddenly, I felt a wave of regret washing over me. Days passed and everything seemed fine between us. I hadn't seen Mark since that night, but one Saturday, my man and I were supposed to go hang out with his college buddies. Everyone was having a good time, including me chatting with some of the girls. Out of nowhere, my man came up to me and said we had to leave right away. I was shocked at first, thinking he was just messing around. His serious attitude made me get up during the ride back home. I kept asking him what was up, but he stayed quiet no matter what I said. When we got home, he went straight to our bedroom, took out all my clothes from the cabinets, and confronted me. He said he knew all the stuff Mark spilled about that night. He made it clear that cheating was bad enough, but betraying him with his best friend was absolutely unforgivable. He said he didn't want to see me anymore and told me to leave. Man, I was so lost when I left right then and there. I had to pack my bags with no clue what to do next. Can anyone give me some advice on how to fix things with my marriage? I'll do whatever it takes, but I'm just so confused and don't even know where to start. I'd really appreciate any guidance. It's been almost a month now and my life has been a total mess. I tried everything, begged my husband for another shot, but he's done with me. He won't even talk to me anymore. I hooked up with Mark once and immediately regretted it when it was over. But my husband had already kicked me out of his life and is dead set on getting a divorce. I'm feeling lost and unsure of what to do. I'm hoping my husband will wake up and see that I deserve another shot. It's been 3 months and things have only gotten worse. I'm starting to come to terms with the fact that I brought this on myself. My friends have been slowly backing away after finding out about the mess I'm in. No matter how much I tried to explain, they took my husband's side and judged me based on one mistake. I get why they are mad, but I don't get why they are holding on to so much resentment towards me. My husband is going through with the divorce even though I've begged him to forgive me countless times. I admit I messed up and I wouldn't do it again, but it seems really harsh for him to divorce me and throw away all the years we had together. I was a great wife to him, but one mistake made it seem like I was the worst person he's ever met. My ex-husband and I can't believe that Mark and I are still besties. We hooked up, but it was a mutual decision between two grown-ups. We both messed up, but why am I the only one dealing with the fallout while he's still buddy-buddy with my ex? It's all so confusing and I don't think I'll ever get over it. I know I deserve what's coming to me, but how do I accept who I am and where I'm at now? I'm moving on to a new chapter of my life in a different state. Been cutting ties with those who turned me down. I won't forget how they treated me, but I'll use it as fuel to better myself. Yeah, this account is just for this, but here's my story. I'm a married woman messing around with a married guy. I stayed loyal for 15 years, but my husband stopped caring about getting close to me. No matter what I did, he just wasn't into it. I'm fit, take care of myself, and I'm pretty hot. In terms of looks, I tried to get my husband to go see a doctor, but he stubbornly refuses. He's perfectly fine physically, but just isn't interested. I know it's not about me, but his constant rejection really started to get to me. I started feeling ugly and ended up depressed. I thought about leaving, but I didn't want to put my kids through that. Then one night, the kids were at my mom's, so I decided to surprise my husband with some sexy lingerie. I put it on and sat next to him on the couch, but he just ignored me and asked me. So, I was trying to get my man to budge because he was glued to the TV and I was just standing there in his path. He didn't even bat an eye at the $100 lingerie set I got from Victoria's Secret, which I was saving for a night without the kids. That was the last straw. I locked myself in the bathroom and bawled my eyes out for an hour after he went to bed, completely clueless about my feelings. I ended up going online and making an Ashley Madison profile. I used a bikini pic from our vacation, but I blurred out my face. Instantly, I started getting a ton of attention. It was a huge ego boost. Feeling like I was being ignored, I wanted to be wanted and desired. For about a month, I just chatted and flirted with people. But after another month of getting turned down and feeling sexually frustrated, I decided to step it up. I set up meetings with a couple of guys at Starbucks, but there was no chemistry and I was picky, so I politely turned them down. I started asking for more pictures and finally met up with a guy who was in town for business. He was fun, but it was just a one-time thing. It definitely made me feel better about myself and helped ease my sexual frustration. I wasn't really looking for anything at the time, but then I got a message from another member that caught my eye. We chatted on and off for a few weeks before finally meeting up in person. As soon as I met him, I was really into him. He seemed perfect and was in the same boat as me. His wife wasn't interested in sex either. She would go along with it if he pushed, but it always felt like she was just going through the motions. So, we hit it off and decided to just hook up. We meet once a week at different hotels or his office after work. The sex has been amazing, like the best either of us has ever had. We've tried out every desire and fantasy we've ever had. We've been doing this for about a year now. Even though there's a chance we could fall in love and start a new life together, neither of us wants to mess up our families. I still have feelings for mine. Man, my husband just can't satisfy me. If it wasn't for my affair, I probably would have divorced him by now. My lover makes me feel complete and helps me stay in this marriage. Surprisingly, my relationship with my husband has gotten better since I don't resent or feel as angry towards him anymore. It's weird to admit this, knowing some people might judge me, but unless you've been in my situation, you can't understand. This is the only way I can keep my family together. There was something missing before. Something's been missing in my life and it's been making me miserable and sad. I've been filling the void in my marriage with someone else, which isn't great. I wish my husband could give me what I need and would go see a doctor about it, but for some reason he won't or can't. His refusal to get his testosterone levels checked or make a doctor's appointment shows he doesn't really care about my happiness or how I feel. I don't feel guilty about it. I'm just doing what I have to do to keep my family together for the sake of my kids, considering how well we get along and the life we've built together. I'm really happy with my marriage. I know that getting divorced wouldn't necessarily make me happier or better off. I see our marriage like a 100-piece puzzle with 99 pieces perfectly put together. I had to find that missing piece somewhere else or think about starting over completely. I'm not ready to give up on the other 99 pieces, so I do what I gotta do.